Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of Human Interaction. I am your host, Andrew Hambone Hambleton, and today, for the first episode, I just want to break it down for you. I want to give you the 411, the skinny, the scoop, if you will. I just want to let you know what I'm trying to do with this, the purpose of the podcast, how it's all going to work out. I'm going to introduce myself to you a little bit, tell you a little bit about me. I'm going to talk about comedy and podcasting, my views on that, because I am a comedian. I don't know why there would be anybody listening to this who doesn't know that I'm a comedian already. Um, because I'm assuming this is not going to blow up. This is not going to be a big old popular podcast, and I'm okay with that. I've got to be okay with it at this point. um, so yeah, I am a comedian. A little bit about me, let you in on me a little bit, and I've completed the transition from failed open mic comedian to podcaster just by pressing a button and hitting record, man. I've done it. I'm a podcaster now. And that's kind of part of why I find this so difficult. Just me sitting in my bathroom right now trying to record this. And comedy too. Sometimes, you get that inflated ego, I feel like. And it makes me feel like a fucking douchebag sometimes. Um, and I don't know how to really overcome that because it's just a weird mindset that you have to be in. To That's my cat Lido. I don't know if you can hear her, but she's being very rude right now, and I'm sure you're gonna hear her multiple times throughout this episode, and multiple times throughout other episodes as well. It's just kind of what she does. She's very opinionated, she's very vocal, and she is very old and very sweet. So maybe I'll interview my cat at some point. Who knows? That would have the most hits, that would have the most views, listens, whatever plays. There we go. That's the word. I gotta sound like I know what the fuck I'm doing here. Jesus. Uh, so anyway, um, comedy podcasting, it all gives me this very, very, very real sense of an inflated ego, and I'm very self-conscious about it. Um, and that can make performing and doing this kind of difficult. I kind of admire people that can do it uh, somewhat flawlessly because that's just not how I operate at all. I'm not polished. Even my comedy, if you've heard it, I'm sure you'll agree. It's very rarely what people would call a clean, flawless set. But that's what it is. It is what it is. Um, but the mindset that you have to take to do this and to be very confident in yourself doing this is very weird to me because you kind of have to sit there and say to people, uh, I am funny and you should listen to me. Like so often comedians especially are associated with this like yearning for attention, begging for attention, and that's not what the really successful people do at all. It doesn't matter what style of comedy you're talking about. Everybody who has quote unquote made it gets on stage and they have this attitude, this mindset of I am funny, you should listen to me. Not please listen to me, it's you should listen to me. It's a very different energy and mind space, So I'm not great at taking that stance. I'm not a very confident person. That's kind of one of the reasons I started comedy in the first place. Um, 5 years ago, I heard of NPR piece about rejection therapy, and a fear of rejection is something I struggle with a lot, and it's kind of become a complex at this point, which I'll get to in a little bit. Um, but 5 years ago, I heard this piece, and I found out that open mics were a thing. Like I always loved comedy. I loved it, since I was like 8, 9 years old. I think Bill Cosby was the first stand-up special I heard, but I always liked making people laugh, and I always admired the guys who could do it, especially in movies like Chris Farley, Jim Carrey. Those guys were really big influences on me when I was very young. Like a preteen, uh, prepubescent little boy. They were very influential. I gotta stop making it weird like that. That is not a good place to go to. The fuck, dude. Um, anyway, uh, so before I go back to that, I'm gonna reset myself a little bit here because I one I have tried to do this first episode 5 times alone tonight, and over the past year or so, I've probably recorded the first episode of this podcast 10, 15 times, and I always just say fuck it because I get so distracted so easily. I don't come into this with any pre-formed ideas or anything like that. Um, and I'll go off on tangents, and I'll get lost from the point that I was originally trying to make, which was just an introductory uh, episode, just telling you what's up. Just keep it short and sweet, dude. So what I've done is I've written myself notes and prompts and things like that to try to keep myself moving along. Um, because I don't see. I was fucking spaced out there. Jesus, that was bad. I should have just kept going with the tangent, I think. so, yeah, I'll go back to, to the comedy story. We'll finish that up, and then I'll get to like the real purpose of the podcast, and maybe I'll talk a little more shit about comedy. I don't know. We'll see where this ends up. Trying to keep it short and sweet, like I said, and I'm killing it, dude. Fucking killing it. So, like I said, I really admired these specific comedy actors when I was a child, and then as I was a teenager, I started learning more about stand up and finding out. I think Dane Cook was one of the first people that I was really into, and then like guys like Louis C.K., Chappelle, they came along and they really blew my mind. Um, and I always had this admiration for people who could do that, who could just go on stage and make people laugh, because that's a really really good feeling to make someone just laugh when they had no, especially when they had no intention of doing it. If someone obviously has no intention of laughing at anything that you say, and you can get them to even just smirk, it's like the best drug in the world to a sociopath like me. uh, but as I got older, I really started, early 20s, I really started to appreciate the art form of comedy, of stand up specifically. And then as I turned 27 years old, I learned that open mics were a thing, and people could just go and do 5 minutes of comedy. They almost have to let you do it. You put your name on a list. So I did it. I went and put my name on a list, and I tried to emulate the storytelling ability of Mike Birbiglia the first time I was ever on stage, and you can imagine how that went. That was very surprised that I actually had the nerve to go back and do it again after the first time, um, because there was not a single laugh in the Lizard Lounge in Lancaster, PA. Pre-renovations. It was really dark and dingy then. We were under the stage, so if they had any type of music event, it was miserable trying to tell jokes because all you could hear was just boo, 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 just fucking bass drum uh, for shitty metal bands. But the first time that I was there, comedians will tell you this. You never forget your first time. It's very much like sex. That's why that's a hacky fucking bit. Um, it was miserable. Like I'm thinking about it now, and I'm just getting that flashback, like cringe feeling. Um, but yeah, I tried to tell a long form joke. It wasn't quite a storytelling. It wasn't quite a story joke, but it was very long and very detailed. Um, and no one laughed, not a single laugh. Literally, like I remember looking out at the crowd of 10 other fucking Lancaster comics at the time, um, and they looked horrified. Like they weren't even looking at me. It felt like they were looking behind me, like there was just something terrible was like there was a fucking grizzly bear behind me just ready to eat me. Like that is the kind of look that I was getting my first time on stage, and it wasn't any like edgy shock humor. It was the first bit I did was actually one that I worked on for a long time, and then I heard Nikki Glazer and Daniel Tosh do two very, very similar jokes to each other and to me, and so I dropped it, and it sucks because it was one of my first bits. It was about how people who run half marathons are quitters. The punchline is literally if I whenever I see one of those 13.1 stickers, I just think you quitter. And I think that's pretty much how Tosh did it too. So I really had to drop it, but I thought of it first. So if you're out there, Daniel Tosh, uh, you're a better comic than me, and you proved it by doing the same joke that I did, but for a lot more people. Daniel Tosh is definitely listening to this. I don't know if you know that. He's actually a very, very, very good imaginary friend of mine. And let's look at the list. Let's look at the notes. I'm allowed to have these notes here with me. I'm allowing myself to do that because I'm not on stage and I'm not going to be looked down upon for having notes with me for a podcast. So that was the story of my first comedy open mic, and honestly, wasn't my worst experience in comedy over the years. But I'm really surprised that I had the nerve to do it again, and I'm kind of falling into a space where I don't have the nerve to do it anymore again, which is kind of depressing. But I still love going on stage. I just hate all of the work and the travel and the waiting that goes into it. It wasn't actually bad when I was doing 2 to 3 mics a night, because it was like, all right, I got get on stage, get off, hit the next mic. Like I wasn't just sitting around waiting and not talking to anybody because I have a lot of trouble with one-to-one interaction, which brings me to the whole purpose of this podcast. Um, I want to sit down with other human beings and just have a one-on-one interaction, and just get to know each other a little bit, because human beings are fascinating to me. the most fascinating thing in the universe at this point, the known universe. Um, and I've reached the point where I'm more comfortable standing up in front of strangers on stage than I am just sitting down and talking to even like some of my best friends. Sometimes that awkwardness hits and I just lose it. I space out. That's how I react to it. That's my reaction to anxiety, I guess, is to just kind of space out and almost go catatonic at times. And I think sometimes that comes off in especially in like the comedy world where we're all supposed to be friends and everything. And I think that comes off as me being a dick, and I don't like feeling like that. So I'm trying to get better at talking to people, and maybe this could turn into a form of networking. You never know. You never know how things are going to go. But uh, the point of the podcast is to one, get to know other people, two, improve interpersonal skills, and three, specifically with this episode, and I might do some solo ones here and there, but I really don't like the idea of doing that, because it feels very egotistical to me, and just yeah, um, I don't necessarily want the whole podcast to be about me, but this episode, I am really trying to work the muscle that I think is kind of atrophied a lot since I've really taken a step back from the grind, the hashtag grind of comedy. Um, and that's whatever muscle or, neurotransmitter that that operates the link between my thoughts and my mouth. Um, I have a lot of trouble vocalizing my thoughts now because I live alone and I haven't been doing comedy very much, and I haven't been interacting with other people a lot, and I stay inside my head a lot. For I would say for the past year and a half, pretty much once I went to jail, which maybe we'll talk about that a little bit too. You can't just throw out the word jail and not talk about it. I understand, but I'm trying to keep this short. Relax. Um, so ever since I went to jail, uh, and I had to stop interacting people with people by law for a little while. Um, I just I've gotten stuck in my head. Uh, I have a lot of great ideas, and I think of a lot of things that are funny and things that I'd love to talk about, and then it just doesn't make its way out of my mouth very well. Um, and I used to be, when I was in the thick of my grind with comedy, um, I was pretty good at vocalizing thoughts and being understood and spoken, and all of those uh, good things and not just stuck in my head thinking about all of this great shit and then never acting on it, never being able to act on it. And I think that starts with the ability to vocalize thoughts. Um, because even writing something down doesn't really have the same effect for me. I'll remember it, I'll think about it more, but speaking, I think for me, it goes hand in hand with acting. So um, I'm trying to accomplish a lot for me on a personal level, but not necessarily on a fame level or attention level. So the goal of this is not necessarily to be funny. Um, it's the same approach I've taken to comedy for 5 years. I'm not worried about it being funny. I just want to be interesting. I just wanna have a good time, get to know someone, um, and see where a conversation takes us. Conversing is a lot of fun, and I want to give myself the opportunity to do it more. So I'm gonna start with some people that I know pretty well already, friends, and maybe even some family members. We'll see how that goes. Um, and then I'm gonna try to first of all I'm gonna try to start getting out to more mics, even if it's just I've pretty much given up on being a famous comedian at this point, but I still do love doing comedy. So, it's just something that I enjoy. So why don't I do it? I'll tell you I don't enjoy it, but I do, and I think it would go a long way to helping me improve the same situation that I want to improve by doing this podcast. But part of that is also going to be trying to find other comedians. Every comedian wants to be on a podcast. Um, Hopefully, everybody would want to be on mine too. It'd be a really bad sign if I asked any comedian to be on my podcast and they were like what, an hour of just being able to talk about me uh, with you? No thanks. Yeah. So, anyway, back to the notes. Point of the podcast, I'm allowed to have notes. I wrote myself a note that says I'm allowed to have notes, just so I didn't feel bad about it. Because I'm neurotic and weird, and you can love me or leave me, baby. Um, so, all right, I do have jail question mark written down here too, and I brought it up, so I'll tell you the story about. I'll tell you about jail, and then maybe I'll get out of here because I think the battery's running a little low on this bad boy. So, um, jail. First of all, well, don't drink and drive, because that's what got me there. I got a second DUI. They were 6 years apart, so I don't. I want to make that clear. It's not like I mean, I was driving. I got paranoid about who might be listening. No one who matters. I was drinking and driving a lot at that time, at both of those times in my life. I was going through some shit at both times, on a personal level, and I want people to be vulnerable, so I'm going to be a little vulnerable. Um, the first one, I was uh, 4 years old, 23 years old, something like that. 24. I was 24 years old. Just turned 24 and had just kind of gone through a half breakup with a girl. It was like, I'm pretty sure at this point in my life, I'm pretty sure that I had just misunderstood what our relationship was. And I was very depressed and I got very drunk at a bar, and then I drove home and I got lost. That's how drunk I was. I got lost driving to my own house, and I drove my car off the road into a cornfield. Don't really remember exactly how that worked out, but the car was pretty fucked up. The EMTs thought I rolled a couple times. I wasn't wearing a seatbelt. Their windows and the sunroof were all wide open. I was not thrown from the car. I was very lucky. I walked away with a concussion and a cut on my face that left a scar, so I look fucking cool. Uh, and I had to deal with the repercussions from that. Spent the night in the hospital. I had to do counseling and community service and pay some fines. And I lost my license for a little bit, but I got ARD because it was the only offense I had, and I was young and blah blah blah. So fast forward 6 years from there, and I was driving home from an open mic in Philly, and I I got another DUI. I got pulled over and got another DUI. Um, and if it weren't for my brother picking me up that night, I would have had to spend the night in jail. I eventually did have to go to jail for 2 weekends. It was, it was a very weird way for white privilege to show up in my life, going to jail. Because I got 2 DUIs, and part of my punishment was that I had to drive myself to jail for 2 consecutive weekends. It's very, very backwards, but I'll take it. So I had to go to jail for 2 consecutive weekends, and uh, pointed I had to get there by Friday at 6 p.m. and then had to be um, and then I got to leave on Sunday at 6 p.m. So, not too bad for 2 weekends. Definitely could have been much worse. Should have been much worse. Actually, I got off with less than the mandatory for some reason. Um, well, I did pay a lawyer a lot of money too, so he probably worked some shit out for me. Anyway, once I got to jail, you have to go through intake if it's your first time there. I was at the Hill in Delco, uh, and man, I sat in a holding tank for uh, I want to say 8 hours with at one point it was like 12 guys in a fucking jail cell with a toilet, and eventually some people got moved around, and it was just me, this younger guy. I think he was like 20, 22, something like that, and this fucking crazy dude who I found out later was on PCP. Uh, how did I find out, you ask? Because he looked me dead in the eyes and just went, dude, I am so wet right now. So, those are the kind of characters I was in jail with. So anyway, once you go through intake and they finish all your paperwork after 8 hours for some fucking reason, it takes that long. If you're in there for DUI, you actually go to a separate building. You're not in Gen Pop. They have their own building. It's got 4 blocks on it, and they're just basically bunk houses. Um, with really, really uncomfortable. You're just sleeping on a steel slab with like a shitty uh, mattress pad that they give you, and a fucking pillow, if you want to call it that. So, and actually, no, it wasn't even a pillow. I made a pillow out of a towel. That's right. The pads had like a pillow built into it, but it yeah, it wasn't enough. And so it's basically DUI jail is basically summer camp for adults with a lot less to do. We had cards. There were some books in there. The Some of the guys who were in there were doing straight time, and they were able to get a TV with a DVD player somehow, and they got bootleg DVDs. So the first night, the Saturday that you're there, we just watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy because it takes up so much fucking time. We did that both weekends I was there. We watched the Lord of the Rings trilogy on Saturday, and played fucking rummy. And actually, that's how I made friends with some of the black guys in jail, because they didn't know what the fuck was going on in the Lord of the Rings. Like the one dude literally like came right up to me. I guess I fit a certain stereotype. Came right up to me, and he's just like, "Yo, man, uh, we have watched this movie so many times, and I still have no fucking idea what's going on." So like the first Saturday I was there, I just sat there, and like we sat in the back so everybody could still hear, and I just quietly explained to this one dude what was going on in the movie, and he seemed very appreciative of it. it's I made one friend while I was there, and jail is kind of weird. The like there's no animosity between anybody because we were all just there for fucking being idiots. We all knew that. But like the black guys definitely hung out with the black guys, and the white guys definitely hung out with the white guys. Like that's just how it went. I tried to spend most of my time just in my bunk, just hanging out, uh, looking at the ceiling, maybe trying to sleep, because they wake you up for breakfast at fucking like 4 in the morning, and it's the worst fucking food ever. The worst food. I'm 100 like anything you've ever heard about jail food is 100% false because it's way worse than what you've heard. It was bland. The texture is just terrible. Like at at breakfast they give you like some sort of mystery meat patty. They give you scrambled eggs, which I hate eggs. I hate eggs, and they're like really bad eggs too. Um, Not like spoiled, not rotten eggs, but just like bad quality uh, institution food. Um, and if you haven't been to jail, you probably don't know. Like think about the worst food you've ever had. Think about hospital food, whatever. It's worse. I promise you, it's the worst thing you can think of. Um, and then they also give you quote unquote potatoes, which are it literally it's like someone just took out a bag of like frozen chopped like diced potatoes like you buy in the grocery store and then just let them thaw overnight and then put them on your tray for you to eat. Like it's you did get milk and orange juice though. They did give you that shit, which was pretty cool because that can do a lot for a dude who's really fucking hungry because he you can't stomach the shit that they give you. Um, so yeah, there's definitely a racial divide, and the food sucks. Two main points about jail. Uh, but I went through that, and then I was on house arrest, and it's just I don't know. I would never. Don't go to jail, people. Don't do it. But that's what really started my kind of emotional downward spiral, if you will, which I've definitely been super depressed lately, and that has a big effect on whether or not I want to go anywhere or see anyone. And I'm trying to get past that. That's another point to this podcast is just trying to get out there and talk to people. Um, yeah. So, jail, jail and house arrest and not having a license really made it difficult to get to mics and to do comedy on a regular basis because most of the people who I knew in the area and had become friends with over the first 2 or 3 years that I had been doing comedy all moved. They all moved to Philly or New York or LA or Chicago or whatever. And so there were only a few people left that I know well enough and have gotten to know better, and some of them I definitely want to have on this podcast because they're very funny people, very interesting people. They know a lot. They have a very different life experience than I have. Because none of us are the same. None of us. We're all special, unique snowflakes, and don't you forget it. Uh, but yeah, I haven't. I've been very depressed. I don't want to say very like not any more than normal, but I let it control me more than I usually do. And part of that was not having a choice. DUIs are expensive. They take away a lot of your freedom. For a year after I lost my license for 6 months, and then I could get a breathalyzer installed in my car, so you know that just made me feel like a doofus, and I couldn't really. A lot of like the parking in Philly is valet, and I don't trust those fuckers to not get my car locked out or arrested, so I just opted not to go. It was a lot easier. But I'm past all of that now, and I'm almost done paying all my shit off. And I want to get back out there. I've been I've been coming up with some stuff that I really like. I've really got to work on how I present it to make it acceptable to people, so that people will accept it because it's super edgy stuff, dude. And I'm pushing boundaries every day. This is what I try to do, man. It's just the kind of comic I am. I hope that sounded sarcastic enough, uh, because I don't think of myself as that kind of comic, you know. And there are people that do, and there's a place for that in comedy. Uh, okay, I'll go on this little spiel, and then I'm gonna stop. I'm gonna end this episode. Um, but we're in the midst, or we're at the beginning, or it's already over. I'm not sure of a comedy civil war. Quote unquote. I I don't see it as like a civil war. I think people just people are just getting a little carried away with stuff, because you do have the two warring factions would be the the free speech crowd, which I think everyone in comedy is for free speech. I don't. I think that's something that everybody, every American believes. We'll put it that way too. Everybody thinks that's free speech is fine, but like people don't have to like it when you say it. And I think that's part of the issue with that side of it is those people can't take criticism. They can't be okay with the fact that like the things you say can offend people and can hurt people's feelings, and they take it to an extreme just to it's trolling. There's definitely a sect of comedy that that goes for shock value and pushing boundaries and edginess, blah blah blah, in a way that isn't productive and isn't constructive. It just alienates everybody else by being very extreme. And then the other side of it, the other extreme, would be the people who are saying, you can't say this, uh, because like there are people out there who are offended, and like you who are trying to control the free speech, basically. They're they're saying I didn't like that, so you can't say that. Um, Whereas I think the general tone up until recently, and I don't know what the catalyst of this is. I think it's just the way society has evolved at this point. Um, but there's the two extremes are both fucking wrong. Is basically where I'm at. You have the one side who thinks that the only thing that matters is I should be able to say whatever I want, and if you don't like it, then you are. I'm taking that as a personal affront. That is offensive to me that you don't like something that I said. That's basically where I see those people at. And I'm not speaking for anybody other than myself. Okay, keep that in mind. But that extreme annoys me just as much as the other one, which is I didn't like that, so you can't say that. Not just I didn't like that, so I'm not going to listen to it, or I'm not going to I'm not going to support it. Obviously, stuff like that. Not you can't say that, and I think that's where the two worlds collide. Obviously, because you have people saying you can't say that, and you have people over here saying, well, fuck you, basically. Which no one likes being told fuck you. I get why people would be angry at being offended. and I like I said, I think both extremes are wrong, and I think the majority of comedians and audience members uh, are somewhere in between those two. You know, we all just want to laugh and have a good time, and we understand that. Well, sometimes in trying to get to a point where we can make people laugh, we say some pretty fucked up shit, and everybody has a different sense of humor. You know, comedy is 100% subjective. There's no, there's nothing that is objectively funny. It's all about taste. It's all about your personal preference, and sometimes those preferences align with a lot of other people, and you know, people make it to the top. Um, One thing I don't like that I hear a lot from the we'll say the left side, which I'm on the fucking left side, but I'm a little closer to the right than some people are, you know. Uh, anyway, the one phrase that I really don't like in comedy is the phrase punching up, and it's not because uh, it's not because of what it well it's exactly because of what it implies, because in order to make something funny, you're whatever you're doing to make people laugh, you're making fun of something. There is a topic, a noun that you are making fun of. You know, a person, place, thing, idea, whatever. You're always standing over that thing, pointing at it and saying, ha ha ha, everybody look at this, laugh at whatever this is, ha 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 ha. You're never that's the position that you have to be in to laugh at something, you know, and that's part of that philosophy extends to some of the material that I find funny and some of the premises that I find funny and topics that offend a lot of people, um, or can be offensive. I'll say that. I don't want to. I don't. I, I try to generalize as much as possible about an idea, but not about people. So, um, you know, I want to try to say things like that idea. I understand how that material can be offensive. Not, I understand how that can offend a lot of people. Like, one just sounds better than the other to me. I don't know. Give me some feedback on that. Feel free to comment, like, subscribe, share, fam. And so yeah, I don't think there's any such thing as punching up in comedy. I think you always have to punch down in order to make something funny to a group of people. And that is, you know, topics like depression, suicide, shit. Like I wrote jokes about when my mom had breast cancer. I I try to write a joke about pretty much anything, or at least try to find the humor in anything, and I'm really good at that for me. Like on a personal level, I'm very good at finding what it is about a situation that makes me laugh. Um, and a lot of times that is the approach that I take to it is that I'm standing over something. I'm making it powerless. I am pointing down. I am punching down at this thing, like my depression, anxiety, or just the general idea of uh, being suicidal, feeling suicidal, or the idea of it, you know. And um, I've gone as far to, in my early days, I learned my lesson. Trust me. But you know, I've talked about sexual assault, rape, things like that, and I completely understand why those topics are hot button issues. We'll say, and you know, back then it was like, well, I was part of that right crowd, you know, where that crowd on the right, I should say, not the right crowd, the crowd on the right, where I said, well, it's all it doesn't matter, free speech, like it's just a joke, blah blah blah. And it's like, okay, no, I definitely understand that was a very immature stance to take, but it did come from the philosophy that I have of standing over something and taking away its power. So when it's something that has so much power like that, um, I was I want to believe, I have to believe that my intentions were good, but it doesn't always come off the way that you want it to. And sometimes it takes people getting real pissed at you to realize that you fucked up and you made a mistake. And some things are just better left unsaid. You know, some things don't have to come through the microphone. So I think we've done enough exploring of me for now. I think I might actually keep this episode as the first one, and that makes me feel very happy. I hope that you will come back and join me when I have guests, because they are going to be interesting, fun interviews. We're going to talk about anything and everything, um, and I'd like it if people join me on this journey through my ego. So until next time, this has been Human Interaction. I'm your host, Andrew Hambone Hampleton. See ya.